Hello and welcome to another edition of the Morning Update. My name is Jessie Leonce. Today is Thursday, the 6th of May, 2021. We are coming to you live from downtown Castries yet again this week for another sitting of Parliament, this time a sitting of the Upper House. And we will have the Senate meeting today to discuss, among other matters, to table, among other matters, the petition on the part of the government to extend for an additional period the state of emergency for an additional period of 5 months, commencing from the 17th day of May 2021 and ending on the 16th day of October 2021, in accordance with section 17(6) of the Constitution of St. Lucia, resolution of Parliament approving the declaration of state of emergency passed as statutory instrument number 38 of 2021, which extended the state of emergency for an additional period of 90 days, commencing from the 11th day of February 2021 and ending on the 16th day of May 2021. So we will hear from the Upper House, members of the Upper House today, their views on this petition by the government of St. Lucia. You would recall this was passed and approved in the Honorable House in the House of Assembly earlier this week. We also heard from the parliamentary representatives their views, perspectives, concerns as well surrounding the ongoing state of emergency. We heard from the Prime Minister in his rebuttal addressing all of these matters, all of the concerns around the table, and he did indicate among primarily that the state of emergency would not and does not impede the electoral process as the Constitution provides for. So we will hear from the Honourable Prime Minister shortly, taking a look back at Tuesday's proceedings on the state of emergency, the reasoning behind the proposed extension for the state of emergency, and also the addressing the concerns as it intersects with the general elections. We also have updates coming from the Ministry of Infrastructure. We will be hearing from the Communications Desk there. The Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports, Energy and Labour is mobilizing its response mechanism as the hurricane season approaches. And we also have a spotlight being placed on football as the football task force is soon to be re-established. Some clips there coming from the Minister for Youth Development and Sports, Honorable Edmund Estefan. So stay tuned for these updates and more. We also have the latest developments in terms of the COVID-19 figures from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So that is coming up on the other end of this break. Stay with us.
Vermin corona ek ika fait mouvement ek en chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique là fait wolo parler en place publique qu'on bol en main base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds hodion à l'autre ika travail tan. Si vous sentez corps pas cordial, quarantine corps, pas en contact et puis l'autre, en cas où tu es exposé. Si on est couillé, free one ou ben n'importe clinique qui opère. Les pays à 10 000 à clé, ça veut dire les supermarkets, pharmacies et puis ATM, yo accessible avant cette souhait. Pays à clé en plein. Ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver vermine corona. Si nous tout servi Jidla à toutes les.
Together let us win this war. Saint Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the Morning Update live on NTN, preceding the sitting of the Senate that has been scheduled for today. It's why we're coming to you live from the Parliament building in downtown Castries. Looking back at the week, we heard from Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney as he petitioned the Parliament on Tuesday for the extension of the state of emergency. He did indicate that the COVID-19 situation continues to be fluid here on island, and managing the virus continues to prove challenging. Adding to the challenges are the increasing variants of the virus and other changes both locally, regionally, and internationally. This, he noted, contributes to the complexity in the management of the virus, and he added that with this reality, the country cannot become complacent and the necessary steps must be taken to ensure health and safety. As part of efforts to combat the spread of the virus, the Prime Minister did petition the government for the extension of the state of emergency for an additional period of 5 months from 17th May 2021 to 16th October 2021. We go to our first clip of the morning, looking back at the word from the Prime Minister earlier this week.
Speaker, you remember that I've often made reference to a dimmer switch rather than to an on-off switch. And that practice continues. As we see COVID numbers decreasing, then we can increase the activities. As we see the COVID cases reducing, then we can increase the number of activities. Want to remember that we passed the COVID Act, Mr. Speaker, in order to incorporate most of the protocols that we're using under legislation. The only aspect of the COVID protocols that cannot be done under the COVID Act, Mr. Speaker, is in fact the curfew. Curfew can only be instituted through a state of emergency. Those, as I said, vaccination offers great hope, and I am optimistic that we will effectively turn the corner and the page on the pandemic this year. We cannot yet let our guard down. Not until St. Lucia and indeed most other countries from which we receive tourists are much closer to achieving herd immunity. Through the contact tracing process, we know that the transmission of COVID-19 is greater during social activities. The state of emergency facilitates the imposition of the curfew, which curbs the nighttime socialization, documented to effectively control COVID-19 escalation. Undoubtedly, the current situation in Anguilla and India serve as a stark reminder of how quickly the situation can change and become dire.
Now, Honorable Shazmi did explain that while the vaccine has brought some level of hope to the grim reality of COVID-19, the country continues to remain at risk to the virus and its negative effects. That is, until herd immunity is achieved. It is therefore necessary that individuals get vaccinated and all precautions are taken to protect the citizenry.
In an effort to ensure the safety of the citizenry, the state of emergency needs to be extended to allow for and to provide for any change in the dynamics of the spread of the virus. Mr. Speaker, until we reach herd immunity, we will remain exposed to an outbreak. It does not take much to turn the corner. There remains a continuing threat to the health of the population. This will allow action to be taken with immediate dispatch on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer where there is a need to take essential and urgent measures.
And final clip from the Prime Minister speaking directly to the state of emergency extension. He added that this SOE has thus far proven very effective, and as the island recorded a significant reduction in the active COVID-19 cases.
While I am sure that many persons have grown somewhat fatigued, just as I have, with the curb that this state of affairs brought by the pandemic has imposed on regular social life and movement, I am pleased to note that we have over the past 2 months seen a gradual decline in the number of active cases. As a consequence, we have begun the phased relaxation of restrictions. Further, I have on many occasions reiterated the importance of St. Lucia reopening our economy and getting our people back to work. Indeed, the interconnected nature of our economy with the international trade and travel makes this not only inevitable, but vital.
That was Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastanet there speaking during Tuesday's sitting of Parliament, where the motion to extend the state of emergency all the way off to October 16th had been approved. Just to let you know, if you're just joining us, that we are coming to you from Parliament Building today. Our morning update precedes the sitting of the Senate, where the senators will convene for discussing this motion and other matters as well today. We continue this morning with updates on the COVID-19 vaccination campaign. At this time, it's targeting all population groups that are 18 years and older. The latest word we're getting from the Ministry of Health and Wellness just about 2 hours ago, first doses given as of May 4th, 2021. That is 24,653 doses to date. The second doses, so the individuals who received their second dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine as of May 4th, 2021, stands at 6,690. Just to give you an update in terms of new cases and recovery, St. Lucia is recording 17 new cases of COVID-19, and that was reported on Wednesday evening. The Ministry of Wellness received confirmation of these new cases from the Ezra Long lab out of a batch of 159 samples that were taken between the 2nd to the 4th of May. These newly diagnosed individuals were seen at the various community wellness respiratory clinics as usual, where they were tested and assessed and tested for COVID-19, asked to remain in isolation pending the outcome of their tests. And the 17 positives that came out, they've been placed into isolation for treatment. The contact tracing for these new cases is now underway. A confirmation of the recovery of 9 individuals was also provided in the same release, and this brings the total number of active cases to 107. Presently, all of the active cases are doing well. The new cases bring the total number of cases diagnosed in country to date since March of last year to 4,602. Most regrettably, the Ministry of Health is reporting 1 COVID-19 related death, bringing the total number of deaths in country to date to 75. Death number 75 is a 69-year-old male from the Castries district with underlying medical illnesses. The Ministry of Health and also us here at the GIS commiserate with the family and loved ones of this gentleman. So as I indicated, in terms of the COVID-19 vaccinations, they are progressing very well. So far, we are seeing many persons are getting vaccinated. Today, Thursday, May 6th, 2021, the health teams are administering the COVID-19 vaccine at the Entrepot Human Resource Center, the Darren Sammy Cricket Grounds, also the Miku Multipurpose Center and the Ancillary Parish Center. The COVID-19 vaccination is catering to the general population. I repeat, to the general population, everyone at least above the age of 18, you can get vaccinated. And running simultaneously with that is the admonition on the part of the ministry that we continue to adopt behaviors and practice the infection prevention and control measures to minimize the spread of the virus. So continue washing your hands frequently, etc. You know the drill. We're going to take a break at this time. When we come back, we have some more updates from the government of St. Lucia. We have yet to cover for the morning, just looking back at the Prime Minister's rebuttal and addressing concerns with respect to the implications, the concerns over implications that the extended state of emergency might have on the general election. Stay with us.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we say that chemicals and GMOs are not the solution? Use organic and join.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We are essentially standing by for the commencement of the sitting of the Senate today. The chamber is now empty, but I would imagine that the senators and other officials scheduled to be here this morning are perhaps downstairs preparing for them to come in shortly. In the meantime, we're just taking a look back at Tuesday's proceedings where the Prime Minister addressed, I think, the highlighted motion for the extension of the state of emergency going all the way to October 16th to continue from May into October 16. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney did make it categorically clear after some concerns were vocalized in the chamber about the possible implications for the general election. But he did make it categorically clear in his rebuttal that the state of emergency extension to October 16th, 2021 will not hinder the nation's general election. During a sitting of Parliament on May 4th, as I indicated, the House of Assembly approved this 5-month extension beginning 17th May, running into the final quarter of the year, and with elections constitutionally due by October, the Prime Minister maintained that the state of emergency does not impede processes for this national exercise. He says, however, that he looks forward to the national exercise being conducted safely with respect to the COVID-19 epidemic.
How is the state of emergency going to stop the election from taking place, Mr. Speaker? Since when a state of emergency affects it? When in St. Kitts they had a state of emergency, did it affect them in having an election? When Jamaica had a state of emergency, did it affect them having the election? When Trinidad and Tobago had elections with a state of emergency, did it affect them having an election, Mr. Speaker? The answer is no. Categorically. Okay, Mr. Speaker? It does not impede the ability to have an election. One of the critical decisions that has been, and I have been saying it repeatedly, to bring some relief to the members on the opposite side, that is going to guide the decision as to when we're going to have elections, is certainly, Mr. Speaker, when we believe that we can have the elections in the safest way possible. But, I've said repeatedly, we are not in any way going to go contrary to the Constitution of St. Lucia.
Now, according to the Constitution of St. Lucia, the state of emergency may be revoked during this 5-month period at the discretion of the Governor General that could allow for the general election. The government intends to come to an agreement with the opposition on COVID-19 protocols for this national exercise.
It's certainly my government's intention to make sure that we will work with the members on the opposite side, with arbitrary independent people, to make sure that we can have a very clear idea that once we are going to have elections, what the protocols would be, and that hopefully both sides will fulfill their obligation and commitment to adhering to them.
That was Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney there speaking with respect to the extension on the state of emergency to October 16th. We continue with our updates this morning with word from the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports, Energy and Labor. With the Atlantic hurricane season approaching, the ministry is mobilizing its response mechanism. The hurricane season is the period from June to November, during which hurricanes usually form in the Atlantic. Shannon LeBourne is the communications officer within the ministry.
To our various zonal engineers, they have been doing the various studies of river courses, and the distilling program should be engaged very soon. We've begun to do some overhanging tree cutting. That is our responsibility annually. We have engaged that plan. What we want to do is appeal to members of the public who also have a very important responsibility as well. You're a residence owner, you own a piece of property. Please, we are appealing to you right now ahead of the Atlantic hurricane season to do the necessary in preparing your property for the showers which will come. So now is the perfect time to begin clearing of your drains, cutting of the overhangings, and doing the necessary preparations for the Atlantic hurricane season. On our end, we are doing our part, but the shared responsibility that we want citizens to be very conscious of as we move very closer to the start of the hurricane season.
That was Communications Officer in the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports, Energy and Labour, Shannon Laborn. The government has announced the re-establishment of a football task force to aid with the development of the sport. The announcement was made by Minister for Youth Development and Sports, Honorable Edmund Estefan, at the sitting of the House of Assembly on Tuesday. The decision was made after fruitful discussions with the St. Lucia Football Association, Inc., SLFA, through the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. Honorable Estefan did note that the government is aware that FIFA's statutes of operations restrict third-party influence and does not want to contravene. However, the minister did indicate that the government understands that it plays a pivotal role in creating an enabling environment for the sport.
It was agreed that the relationship between the government of St. Lucia, through the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, and the SLFA will be strengthened through the re-establishment of the Football Task Force, which was organized a couple years ago, comprising the government, the Ministry of Sports, the SLFA, business partners, private sector and independent individuals. The task force will be charged with the responsibility of suggesting ways in which the relationship between the SLFA, the footballers and the general public can be strengthened for the ultimate goal of restoring confidence and making football a more exciting and beautiful game.
Will be to implement more football matches using a two-tier system, including the relegation and promotion of teams.
It was agreed that the relationship between the government of St. Lucia, through the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, and the SLFA will be strengthened through the re-establishment of the Football Task Force, which was organized a couple years ago, comprising the government, the Ministry of Sports, the SLFA, business partners, private sector and independent individuals. The task force will be charged with the responsibility of suggesting ways in which the relationship between the SLFA, the footballers and the general public can be strengthened for the ultimate goal of restoring confidence and making football a more exciting and beautiful game.
Honorable Estefan did express confidence that the improvement of playing field facilities will solidify St. Lucia as a lucrative sports tourism destination. And finally, from us in our updates for the morning, a prize-giving ceremony was held last week at Alliance Française to reward participants of the Francophonie poetry and poster competition. The competitions form part of activities held to commemorate Francophonie Month, held annually to celebrate the shared linguistic heritage based on the French language. We have Homer DeMarc with the details.
St. Lucia's linguistic heritage based on the French language is celebrated annually during Francophonie Month. Students are encouraged to not only learn the French language, but also participate in Francophonie competitions to help sharpen and display their linguistic abilities. 2021 was no exception. During the month of March, l'Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, OIF, hosted a calendar of activities including the Francophonie Poetry Competition. The Francophonie Awards ceremony was held on April 30 at the Alliance Française to reward participants of the Francophonie Poetry and Poster competitions. Marcia Centurion Laurent, national correspondent to the OIF, spoke on the theme under which this year's celebrations were held.
As you know, the theme chosen for this year's observance was Femmes francophones, Femmes résilientes. And this theme was chosen in order to highlight the challenges faced by women and to celebrate their strength and resilience in the face of crisis. The theme is quite fitting for today's activity because you two students have demonstrated great resilience in the face of the pandemic. You have had to deal with the impact of COVID-19 on your education. You have had to transition to online learning, physical school, back to online learning, back to physical school, and you have done all of this with so much grace. And in the midst of all of this turmoil, you took up the challenge to participate in the Francophonie competitions that were held this year.
Christelle Autremont, Regional Councillor of Cooperation at the French Embassy, stressed on the importance of Francophonie celebrations.
But Francophonie is just not one day, it's not just 1 week, it's not just 1 month, it's every day. It's learning a new language, becoming better in the language, and also learning about another culture and the values associated with this language. So today, I want to give a special thanks to all the teachers and also the Teachers Association who are on board every day to have the young St. Lucian, the young Caribbean, learn a modern language and learn French in particular.
A certificate of participation was given to each student who participated in the competitions. The winners of the poetry competitions were as follows. 4th place, Teacher Dovell. 3rd place was awarded to Maya Fassois. In 2nd place, Kiana Charles. And the winner of the Francophonie competition was Carnegie Paul of the Leon Hess Comprehensive Secondary School. Participants of the 2020 poster competition were also awarded, given the OIF's inability to do so last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. From the Government Information Service, I'm Hamidi Mark.
Thank you, Homa, for that report. And that has brought us to the end of the morning update for today, Thursday, the 6th of May, 2021. We now stand by for the commencement of the Senate proceedings in the Honorable House today. So far in the chamber, we have the Government Senator the Honorable Fortuna Belrose, who's also the Minister with responsibility for culture and the creative industries. We also have the Opposition Senator present as well, Senator Lisa Jarre here. Of course, more senators should be coming in shortly for today's proceedings. Do stay tuned to NTN. We will be bringing you the live proceedings of the parliamentary sitting today, so stay tuned to us. But in the meantime, we're going back to studio until we have the start for the morning. Cheers.